From 1878 to 1968, there were 71 lake captains that called Bayview, Wisconsin, on the shore of Lake Michigan, their home. While they lived here, they captained 195 different ships, from tugboats to schooners to steamships, in voyages that took them to every one of the Great Lakes. Join us now for another episode of Bayview, Town of Lake Captains, where we explore not only these captains, but also their ships, their homes, their families, and their lifetime of sailing adventures on the Great Lakes.
Hi everybody, welcome to another episode of Bayview, Town of Lake Captains, where we talk about the 71 different lake captains that once lived in Bayview from 1878 to 1968 in the age of sail and steam. This episode sponsored by, presented by, the Historic Bayview Lake Captains Society. Now today, I'm standing in front of, on the opposite side of the street, Captain Arthur Rennpferd's house, who was born on Jones Island and was a fisherman on Jones Island for many years until, as many of you know, the Jones Islanders, most of whom were fishermen, were evicted and Quite a few of them moved over here to Bayview, and there's other episodes on those captains that did. And Arthur Rennpferd was one of them. Now he moved into this house across the street. He was captain of the family fishing boat, Augusta, which he named after his mother, and he was co-owner with his brother Charles Jr. and one other brother, I think. Arthur's and Charles Jr.'s father died when they were very young, actually before Charles Jr. was born, 6 months before, and then when Arthur was only 4. Their father, Charles Rennpferd Sr., drowned on the lake. And their mother, Augusta, had to basically fend for herself. There were no safety nets in those days, and she became a fish peddler. And she was extremely successful at it and provided a good living for herself as a widow and her 7 children. So, pretty amazing. So there's more coming up in the episode about Arthur by our narrator, Simon Stanhope. Hope you enjoy it. And until next time, hats off to our Bayview Lake captains. See you then. Bye.
Welcome to another installment of Bayview, Town of Lake Captains, where we discuss the lives of the 71 different lake captains that once lived in Bayview, Wisconsin, during the late 19th and early 20th centuries, in the age of sail and steam. This discussion will include their ships, their homes, their families, and their lifetime of sailing adventures on the Great Lakes. Here is the map of lake captains' homes in Bayview to show you where this episode takes place. Its location focuses primarily on the large green arrow. Today we will be discussing the life of Captain Arthur Rennpferd, who was born on Jones Island. His father, a fisherman there, drowned in Lake Michigan after a fishing accident when Arthur was just a boy. After the loss, his mother became a fish peddler on the island to make ends meet. Arthur later followed his father into the Jones Island fishing profession, buying a fishing boat with his brothers, which they named after their mother. 2 of the brothers, Arthur and Charles Jr., later became Bayview Lake captains, when all Jones Islanders were forcibly evicted from the island in the early 1900s. Charles Jr. later drowned in the exact same spot his father Charles did. Another brother, Otto, was killed in the First World War, fighting for Germany before the United States entered the conflict. Captain Arthur Rennpferd was born on Jones Island on 20th of July, 1886. He had 7 siblings, 3 brothers, George, Charles Jr., and Otto, and 3 sisters, Anna, Emma, and Ella. His parents were Augusta, born in Prussia, and Charles, birth location unknown. His mother immigrated from Prussia in 1851. His father, Charles, was a Jones Island fishing boat captain. On 12th June, 1890, he was captain of the fishing boat Seabird, and tragically drowned when it was rammed by the schooner Fearless in Milwaukee Harbor. Future Bayview Lake Captain Charles Tesler was aboard the Seabird as crewman, and survived after being thrown into the water by the collision. Arthur was just 4 years old when his father drowned. After Charles Rennpferd drowned in June 1890, his wife and Arthur's mother, Augusta, found herself with no income to support her 7 young children, and 6 months pregnant with her 8th. There were no safety net programs in society then that could have helped her, such as today's Social Security and welfare, so she went to work in the only industry she was familiar with, fishing. Augusta became a fish peddler, buying fish from the fishermen of Jones Island and smoking them in a smokehouse she built. She would then peddle this unique variation of the product to her fellow Jones Islanders and local businesses like restaurants and other food establishments. She brought in enough income to successfully raise her children. Further tragedy hit the family years later when Augusta's daughter and Arthur's sister, Emma's, husband, Alexander True, a Jones Island fisherman, died in another accident out on the lake. Emma now had to support 4 young children on her own. She turned to her mother Augusta for help, and also became a fish peddler. Emma was successful, and was able to provide a good, clean living for her children. Despite the dangers and potential for losing one's life as a fisherman on the lakes, all 4 of Charles Rennpford's sons decided to continue in their father's wake as fishermen. 3 of the 4, Otto, Arthur, and Charles Jr., later became fishing boat captains, and thus lake captains, and did so for the rest of their lives. After 1910, Otto is shown as a fishing boat captain that year, aged 22, boat name unknown, living on Jones Island, while the other 3 sons, Arthur, Charles Jr., and George, bought their own fishing boat together in 1908, naming it the Augusta after their mother. 2 of Augusta's sons, Arthur and Charles Jr., would eventually captain it. George may have also become a lake captain, but this is not confirmed, though he is recorded as a, quote, commercial fisherman, independent, unquote, through at least 1940. Prior to this, George is only recorded as an engineer on fishing boats, never as captain. It was Arthur and Charles Jr. that became Bayview Lake captains. In 1920, Arthur, his mother Augusta, and his brothers George and Charles Jr. left Jones Island for their first home in Bayview, located between 2551 and 2559 South Wentworth Avenue, formerly 349 Bishop Avenue, since torn down. Arthur is recorded as working as a, quote, captain, lake boat, unquote, and his brother Charles Jr. is shown as a, quote, manager, fishing tug, unquote. This tug was most certainly the family fishing boat Augusta, with Arthur as captain, George as engineer, and Charles Jr. as the business manager. After 2 years there, they all moved in 1922 to what would be Arthur's second Bayview home, 2549 South Shore Drive. However, there is no record of Arthur's residence after 1922, though his mother Augusta and son George continued to live at 2549 South Shore Drive until her death in 1940. Arthur is listed in just the 1 year, 1922, as living in Bayview at 2549 South Shore Drive, and was most certainly captaining the family fishing boat Augusta. He died on Christmas Eve, 1926, of unknown causes. He captained the Augusta for 18 years, from 1908 to 26. That same year, 1926, Arthur's brother Charles Jr. is documented as taking over as owner of the fishing boat Augusta after Arthur's death. Charles Jr. also most likely became captain and, in what can only be described as one of Bayview maritime history's most ironic occurrences and twists of fate, was to drown 9 years later at the exact same spot his father did 45 years earlier. The episode about Charles Jr. on this channel is coming up. Charles Jr. was the son that his mother Augusta was pregnant with when his father, Captain Charles Rennpferd Sr., drowned. She had named Charles Jr. after the father he'd never met. Captain Arthur Rennpferd is buried at Forest Home Cemetery with his mother Augusta and brother George. Charles Jr. has a marker there in the family plot, even though his body was never found. Details of Captain Arthur Rennpford's family are unknown, other than his father, mother, and siblings, described above. Of interest, one of his other brothers, Otto, who also became a lake captain, though on Jones Island and not Bayview, was killed in the First World War, fighting for Germany. He enlisted in the German military sometime after 1915, his last recorded date in Milwaukee and Jones Island. America didn't enter the war until 2 years later, in 1917, and at the time Otto left to fight for Germany, America was still neutral. Thanks for watching. This photograph isn't about Bayview or its lake captains, but it's from the same era of Great Lakes maritime history, We thought we'd close with it for enjoyment, as it captures the spirit of the era. If you'd like to read more details about Captain Arthur Rennpferd, as well as the sources for the information contained in today's video, you can find these and more in the book Bayview, Town of Lake Captains, for sale now, by individual volumes in both e-book and paperback. All proceeds from book sales go to support various maritime history projects related to Bayview's Lake Captains. One of these is a plaque and marker with the captains' names and addresses on it, as part of the creation of the Bayview Lake Captains Historic District, which will be the first of its kind in America. If you would like to contribute to support these projects, to include this and other markers honouring Bayview's Lake Captains, with 100% of all donations and contributions in all forms going to support them, please consider contributing to us through the listings found on our website under the Contribute button, as well as in the end credits at the conclusion of this video. Note, we are not a 501c3, so contributions are not tax-deductible. If, for some reason, we are unable to secure these markers, then all funds donated to this site will be given as a cash donation to the museum ship SS City of Milwaukee in Manistee, Michigan. This is the only surviving intact ship that was once captained by a Bayview Lake captain, and in its case was captained by at least 2, and likely 3, totaling over 20 years between them. Finally, we also have free self-guided walking tours of Bayview's 71 Lake Captains' homes, using only your phone. It's simple and easy. Just go to our website shown here, find the item on the menu bar at the upper left named Free Self-Guided Walking Tours, and then scroll down to find the map with the instructions. Zoom in by street. When you find a captain's house you're interested in, click on it and details appear on the right, along with a link to the YouTube episode from this channel that provides the biography of the captain that lived there. It's free, fun, and available any time you're out walking. Just bring along your phone. I'm Simon Stanhope, narrator for these episodes. Join us again soon for the next chapter of Bayview, Town of Lake Captains.